this is my presentation of learning, and it's a look into the life of an MPX student by me, Karen. Okay, so before I get into my 5 artifacts, I want to talk about character versus physical traits. Character. These are the traits that describe people, who they are, and the way we act. An example of a character trait would be something like honesty or integrity. These are the things that define who we are. Physical. Physical traits are things that we learn along the way. They're the physical aspects of learning. Things like building construction in Mr. Kaneko's class or making infographics in Ms. Calico's class. Okay, so the first character trait I wanted to talk about that I learned is responsibility. It's important in MPX, but even more important in real life. It prepares me for the future. I have to be responsible for my own actions, and it's being independent workers, but working with a group. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about it being important in real life. When we're older, we're going to have the responsibilities of being an adult. We're going to have to pay taxes, we're going to have to pay rent, we're going to have to pay mortgage on a house if we get one, we're going to have to pay for food every week, and we're going to have to take care of our future kids. These are all responsibilities and things that we will do. I learned this in NPX because things like having to finish infographics on time, looking on Edline to find my work, these are all responsibilities. I feel like I really learned this adjustment since last year in 8th grade into MPX because mainly I was always told by my teacher what my homework was in the 8th grade, but now in MPX we have to use the resources given to us such as Edline and iTunes U to find our homework. And at the beginning of MPX, this is something I kind of struggled with, and I would always try to make excuses. Okay, I talked about preparing for a future also a little bit, but I want to go into that with a little bit more depth. It really helps me think being responsible will help me in the future because in order to be able to complete school in college and even throughout high school, I'm going to have responsibilities, and they're only going to get harder as we grow up. So that's why right now MPX is preparing me for the future. Responsibilities for our actions. Okay, so responsibilities for our actions. These are things like not blaming others and, manning up to like our own faults. So if I would forget homework, instead of saying, oh, well, Miss Calibro didn't tell me to do it, I'd say, no, I had the resource there, I could have looked on Edline, I could have found the assignment, and I could have done it. This is something that I had to learn. I wasn't very good at this at first, and even with my group for my hydroponic system, I sometimes blame like Justin Shane or something for like if something wrong happened, but now I'm realizing that we're all a group, we work together, and that we all do make mistakes because we only are human. Being independent workers, but working with a group. Okay, so I do have the responsibilities of being independent. Let's say I have an ingredient to bring in to cook for the class, or for our field trip. So if I forget to bring in the chicken, then nobody has chicken and nobody's really able to cook. So this is being responsible, but I am still working with a group because everyone has their own responsibilities, and when we combine them together, everything works out. Drilling was a responsibility that I had in building a hydroponic system. Kind of a major responsibility because if you messed up, you kind of like messed up the piece of wood. So, yeah. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was independent learning. Independent learning is self-motivation. If you want it, you gotta go get it, and we have to use our resources that are given to us. Being a self-motivator. This is pretty much what gets us out of bed in the morning, right? Like, why would we get up in the first place if we didn't know that we had to come to school and get our work done? Self-motivation is kind of a hard thing for me to learn at first, until I realized that grades really do count now starting in high school, and I really do need to work hard. As Matt was talking about in the previous POL, we talked about how our parents are paying $18,000 for us to go to school. This means that we have to work hard because this is their money that they're paying for us. If not, why would they pay it in the first place? So I need to be self-motivated to get my work done and to make the best grade possible. If you want it, go get it. I have to get out there and I have to do something in order to do good on the assignment. I have to be able to self-motivate myself, I have to be able to work hard at it, and I have to be able to work hard independently. Nobody's always there to help me through the way. Although, in the beginning of the year, my mom did help me a lot with my assignments, reminding me what to do and reminding me to check Edline. But over time, I have learned that this is what I need to do, and I need to get self-motivated. Using our resources. So at Mid-Pack, we're given iPads, right? So we have Edline, we have iTunes U, we have email. We can email our teachers if we're confused on something. So we always need to be using our resources, no matter what. Alright, so here's a picture of us working together, but still self-motivating, so it's like independent but in a group. So I'm drilling the holes, but then Justin is finishing them up with the screws in it. So yeah. Okay. Group work. This is something that I learned that is one of the biggest things in MPX. It's realistic in real life as opposed to the standard way of learning. I think this is majorly important because in real life we're going to have coworkers, we're going to have jobs, and it's not going to be all on our own. We can't do it by ourselves if we're in a job. We're going to have a boss, and we might be the boss, but no matter what, we'll always be working with people. I think this is important because it's something that we need to learn. Help social skills. Yeah, working in a group completely helped my social skills with everything. I'm able to talk with my group members, figure out what we need to get done, and I'm able to use communication such as iMessage and email through the iPad to figure out what we need to get done. And then more brains the better. This would be like if we're researching hydroponics, and let's say I'm researching about using PVC pipes to make the system. Mike would be researching about using aeroponic system, and while Justin would be researching about using a bucket system. I think this is important because together we can all take our information and combine it to make one big idea. And this idea is what we call teamwork. Group work helps us work together to get the job done. Okay, so here's an infographic that at the beginning of the year me and Justin made. Together we made this. So let's say I researched about how many barges full of total trash we'd make, while he looked up what he calculated how much pounds of trash that'd be per person today. And together we came up with the idea and created the infographic. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is plants and hydroponics, which is a major part of MPX this year. I thought it was super interesting because the first thing we need to know, of course, is how plants grow. In order to grow plants, we have to understand how they work. We learned about photosynthesis. I have a list. Photosynthesis. I give up. Okay. When the plant uses water and sunlight to create surplus, which is kind of like a sugar, which helps it grow. The next important thing that we learned about is sustainability and growing our own food. I thought this was an awesome thing to learn about, and the first thing that really shocked me that we learned was that on Hawaii, or on Oahu, we get all of our shipments from the mainland, almost not more than 95% of our food. And this means that if a natural disaster were to happen and the mainland ships couldn't get to Hawaii, we'd have about 7 days worth of food supply for everyone on the island. This really encourages me to start thinking about how I can be sustainable, making my own food in order to survive. I think it's really important to not be reliable on mainland sources all the time because like we are on an island and we are like 2,000, 3,000 miles away from where we do get our food source, or even more, comes from the other side of the world at times. But I do think it's important that we do have enough food to support our own economy. Building hydroponic systems. I thought this was super cool because before I learned about this, all I knew was like you put a seed in the ground, you water it, and a plant grows. I hardly knew anything about hydroponics and aquaponics. I think this was a super cool thing to learn because it's a new way of growing things and it's a lot more sustainable. We're not using dirt because plants suck up the nutrients from the dirt and then the soil is pretty much useless. Instead, we're actually putting it into the water with the nutrients in it so that our plants can grow. And then we also learned about worm compost and the nitrogen cycle. I thought this was super cool because it's how we make nutrients for our plants. How soil gets eaten up by the worms and then comes out into, filled with nutrients. Okay, so here is a diagram of the plant cell that I made for Mr. Kaneko. Kind of hard to see all the words, but yeah. Okay. Okay, and then here's an infographic I made on a bell pepper. We also had to make a plant info sheet on it, and it was like a study on the plants that were actually growing, which is important because we need to know what we're growing and what it can be used for. I learned the history of it, the varieties, the uses, and the nutritional info. This was very helpful because
It's okay, just go back.
Alright. So I learned about cooking also, and I think cooking was awesome because it's a life skill. It's a fun and new realm of learning. and learning the responsibility of cooking first. First off, it's a life skill because we're always eating no matter what, because that's what our body needs to survive. So why not learn how to cook food for us instead of just buying like 99-cent ramen and putting some hot water in it? Yeah. And then I learned about that it's a fun and new realm of learning. I thought it was super cool to learn about cooking because I've never like really done anything this interesting in a class before. I thought it was like a really fun way to learn, but we still learn the responsibility of cooking. Things like being able to clean up after we're done, things like knife safety and cooking safety. Super detailed. Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, here's a picture of me cooking breast pilaf, and yeah, there would be cooking safety right there using a mitten or like a glove so you don't burn your hand, which I did the first time. It sucked. Here's the breast pilaf after I finished it. I thought this was a super cool homework assignment because instead of doing something like filling out a paper on like how to cook or something like that, we actually got to learn how to cook and make food for our family, which my family also thought was very creative. And then yeah, here's the parfait I made. Okay, so all in all, I learned a lot in MPX this semester. I think it's a very awesome new way of learning as opposed to the standardized way of learning. Things like group work and project work are realistic in real life, and we get to learn about sustainability and hydroponics. Thank you.
Questions for Cameron? Cameron, what was the most difficult part about the POL experience for you?
Getting it to go to the right slide when I press the button.
Thank you.